This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, true seekers and true crime junkies. Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road Jack, Finding the Zodiac. I'd like to welcome Nolan Del Campo to the show today.
Good morning, Nanette.
Good morning. You've had a busy week, you said. Court every day?
Yeah, every day except today.
And you had 2 wins.
2 wins yesterday. It's been a good
just
week.
yesterday.
Yeah, just yesterday, yeah.
Getting justice. And I'd like to welcome Harriet Suchet to the show.
Yes, good morning from fall-like weather, Lake County. Yay!
I know. I'm wondering if we think we're going to heat up again like our Indian summer that we know as we move into September, but it seems very nice today.
Well, if it does for 3 days next week, I'm okay, but the rest is big fall.
It's
so you already know what
Wednesday.
Okay, I was just going to say, so you already know we're going back into the heat.
Yeah.
Thanks for depressing me. Whatever. I say depressing, but I really am good. I'm going to get all the use I can out of these summer tops until I can't anymore. So some of the laundry and research that I have here are just a couple of things from YouTube. And at Midnight Ventures mentioned a year ago, this channel is grossly underrated. YouTube and subs are both at fault. Sure, this is content everybody has seen before, but it is still entertaining to watch it if you haven't seen it lately or are interested in the Zodiac case. So clearly, either I don't have something set up right on my YouTube that is allowing them to search and find me correctly, or what they're saying is that somebody else is involved in an algorithm that is keeping it suppressed. Either way, I still find people saying that today, which is why I brought this particular post back from over a year ago, because I'm sure I've already covered it. But I did do some admin work on my YouTube channel, and hopefully that picks up some more views and some more pathways for people to find me. I also got one from somebody at Tigers Are Forever. It's so weird seeing my family from back then. So I'm totally intrigued. Who is this person? Which ones are their family? Yeah, and Tigers Are Forever kind of gave me that Tiger King feeling. So we'll see how functional or dysfunctional this becomes. I have somebody, Miss Is Channel, saying, I'm curious, why don't you think the guy who said his father is the Zodiac killer is not legit? He, after being adopted, finds his dad and evidence that his dad is the Zodiac, picks match to the T and writings too. So what about that case do you reject? Well, Miss Is Channel, if you don't tell me what the case is or who it is that you're looking at, I can't rightly tell you anything about it and how I feel about it. But I did respond.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Hotel?
No, because it's saying this person was adopted and then found his father. So as if he never knew his father. And then I don't know. I don't know. That was my response.
To Dennis.
Well, except for Dennis' stepson. Right.
Yeah,
and he knew who Jack was from, from the time he was 4 on.
Yeah.
And I responded, I don't know who you're referring to, but if I'm doing a podcast as a handwriting expert on a suspect, Jack Terrence, why would I put stock in any other person? I don't know. I've come writing exams on other suspects and none have fit the bill, no matter who claimed the suspect was legit. In fact, just recently on my Facebook channel that covers the Hit the Road Jack, I had an individual throw up some handwriting of what they say is somebody named Golden. Do you know who Golden is, Harriet?
No, they just keep on coming up with crap. Anyways, go on.
I know. Well, so anyways, they had San Fran written by Golden, and then above that, San Fran was purportedly written by Zodiac. And while neither of those handwritings hit home for me as far as a comparison were concerned, I noted that they were both on lined paper, and I laughed. I said, I don't recall Zodiac ever writing San Fran on lined paper. If he wrote San Fran, it was because it was on an envelope and there were no lines. So I'm not sure where this person got their evidence attempt. And then it was funny because I guess they didn't realize who they were talking to, because when I said, from an expert's point of view, I do not see the similarities. Please explain. She's like, well, are you an expert?
Yeah,
no. Stab it, communication in 60 years worth of a man's life. I'm not an expert though, so don't rely on me. Yeah, anyways. So we did start talking about some Finland murders, which I didn't realize at first, other than one of the YouTube commenters had indicated that this is something they thought was closely connected. I did find that connection, and what it was that made me actually look at those, which was that the SLA manuscript. So from the Symbionese Libertarian Army?
Liberation Army.
Liberation. Indian Liberation Army. You're going to have a whole bunch of angry libertarians.
Aw, poop. The SLA manuscript was actually found in Helsinki. So this is why people have then turned around and attempted to put those murders that occurred in Helsinki together with the Zodiac. I am looking at, right? So I'll have to go back and find out when. I feel like it was long after the Zodiac that they actually found the manuscript. Meaning maybe in the 2000s, if my memory serves me correctly, but I'll have to go back and figure that out.
Who wrote it? Sin Q?
I need to find it. That's what I'm saying. I need to research and find it and see if it's even in a written form. I have no idea. It was information that I read somewhere, and I'm thinking that it had to do with those Finland or the attacks overseas that we were talking about last week. I'm going to start actually doing my second fingerprint examination this week. I'm very excited about that. I'm really enjoying fingerprints. I really wish I could get my hands on some of the images of the Zodiac's fingerprints, because we do, once again, have the right thumbprint of Jack Terrence, and it has both deltas and it has this entire thumbprint, which is absolutely beautiful, and I think would go a long way to telling us whether or not he is consistent with the fingerprints that they have on file. Now, we know that the Zodiac claims to have covered his fingerprints with, oh my goodness, with cement, airplane glue. Cement. Yeah, with a glue. And so I think that that's interesting to note that he did that, because when he sent in his 2002 and 2003 letters to Tom Voigt, when he sent in his fingerprints as proof, all he did was actually print from the first knuckle down to his palm. So we got these areas here, but we didn't get actual fingerprints, as if to say there were no actual fingertips involved, which would coincide with what the Zodiac said in his own letters, that he covered them with airplane cement. So we'll see. Either way, one day, hopefully I get that opportunity. A little bit more on research and news is that I actually got a full breakdown of the case from the 1996 murder conviction of my client, who is looking for a writ of habeas corpus as an actual innocent person. So I just started reading it. I did not have the time to go through the entire thing. But I'm seeing that he is putting forth a lot of evidence that there was exculpatory evidence that was withheld from the jury, including sperm found on the victim that was never tested and was never allowed to be mentioned in front of the jury that this sperm even existed, because they did not want the factor of her having been played into the case to convict him, and likely because that sperm would not have matched him. So that's how much I got out of it so far. I do plan on doing a segment on this once I get everything completely down. He not only sent me a brief synopsis, but he's sent me, it looks like almost an inch thick worth of pleadings and filings and evidence that he has, which is going to be extremely interesting to read, needless to say. I also plan on doing a segment coming up here soon because I recently talked to somebody who has the Veterans Administration on voice recording, falsifying documents or defrauding documents to deny benefits. And I think this goes back to like what Harriet has been solving with the Zodiac stuff, where he is not getting the treatment that he needs. And maybe because he's being denied. After the fact, they don't want to continue paying for things like this, unfortunately. Either way. Also, I have 4 episodes coming up on the news, you guys. I will let everybody know when they're going to air. I'm extremely excited about it. After the induction to Who's Who, I'm being asked to do some interviews. So this will be interesting. Hopefully, I'm going to do some on my career and then also do some on this Zodiac channel as well. Oh, come on.
Way to go, girl.
Congratulations.
Oh, and here, I sent you this envelope, Harriet, so you know what it looks like in person, but we were all talking about the Washington 2-cent stamp that Harriet says the solves is what Jack is consistently looking for because it holds the remedy to the MK Ultra brainwashing or maybe the effects of the drugs used in that program. And this is the way that he's supposed to get his head straight. So I wanted everybody to see that. This was a 1915 letter that I examined, and to the best of my ability off of photos and high resolution scans, was able to literally authenticate the stamp, the time frame of the stamp, the postmark being that from New York of the time frame of 1915. We see that they're using a quill and ink nib type system because we watch the heaviness of the ink deplete as the author continues to write. And then when they have to dip and bring in more ink to continue writing, we see the thickness develop again. The colors were of the time frame. The writing is in a new Russian, basically, that occurred or took place and became established in 1918. But those that were actually lobbying for this new script they were using it previous to it actually being adopted. And this individual was evidently part of that communist movement, which I wasn't sure if communism wasn't just something they made up as a reason to hate people before they could. Yeah, before they could hate races, right? They needed something. So if you were a communist, we hated you, I guess, kind of thing. I don't know. But it turns out that this gentleman
quickly about the stamp. You have the side view of that stamp. The one that Jack is looking for is full face, and it says 1732, 1799. But either way, I would not lick the face of that stamp because that's probably we don't know. Okay, don't do it.
Might have yourself a little.
It is carmine red, the same colors. Okay, so continue.
So I'm looking for a different. What's that?
Yeah.
Is that again, Nolan?
Come to yourself.
If I lick it, it makes it mine. All right. So then I have to continue looking for this Washington 2-cent stamp you're talking about then. All right. Well, that's okay. So in spring or summer, and that brings me back to old news because we had discussed the Minnesota murders from September 2nd of 1974. And my assertion at that point in time was that this was a possibility of Jack actually traveling to Cotton, Minnesota in order to scout out his new property. I have mentioned, though, that I don't have solid evidence of Jack being in Minnesota until October 19th of 1976. So that puts it just over a 2-year mark, which is really kind of outside the boundaries of when I would expect Jack to be scouting for a place to live. But I really don't know at what point in time in 1976 that he moved there. And I want to say that we have evidence in here that he is still having doctor's appointments in February, March. So maybe spring, summertime, he actually moved of 76, just over a year. Either way, I still think all is possible because we're going to continue on with the murders on that side of the country as California watches our murderer actually go away and unsolved murders actually diminish. So Spring and summer of 1975, we have a picture from Nora's photo album with her handwriting on it that says house on San Vincent Way, North Highlands, California. So now they are renting instead of owning. So they've moved from Mount Auckham, where they owned 12 or so acres, to North Highlands. I can't make any sense of that.
Yeah,
I'm just
why would you move to
wondering
North
about that
Highlands?
Mount Auckham property. We have to go there. Anyways.
Yeah. Who moves from mountainous pine trees and plenty of places to roam? You could send the kids out on the acres for hours to a duplex. It looks almost like a duplex, but to a house in North Highlands.
One explanation is that McClellan Air Force Base was still open at that time.
Very good point.
Maybe he wanted to be near an Air Force Base. I don't know.
Very good point, because I think he was purportedly sick during some of these times. Dewhurst shows 1975 Jack and family leaving Mount Auckham for Sacramento, California. These pictures actually coincide and bolster that statement with the movement. Jack shows to be bedridden. So here he is bedridden March to June of 1975. But at this point in time, he's also attempting to obtain another work comp case against Cameron Park Shell. So notwithstanding the fact that the doctor's visits, but the doctors don't really believe him. And we've talked a little bit about that, but I think I have more in continuing reports. Jack is obviously having trouble remembering when his brother died, because we see on the back of a picture that he names Charles Arthur Terrence, date of birth or date of death. He's unknown, 75 or 76, which I thought was extremely interesting. And that might make him, I want to say this particular writing sequence was somewhere in the 80s or so. So this is still quite some time out before his brother's died, but he isn't actually journaling or putting this information down, I think, until a much later date. Let's see. So Torrance, California is where Charles Terrence lived, and that's midway exactly between Gaviota and Poway, which is two major locations for this killer. And his brother, I think, would be the safe base. So I know that some of these things in Gaviota are being laid on the Golden State Killer. I want to talk some about that. At the same time, Poway was also another place of unsolved murders. And if Charles Terrence had been living here that entire time in Torrance, California, it gives a home base for Jack.
Charles Terrence and Torrance?
What's that? Charles Terrence and Torrance? Yeah. That's a tongue twister. Somebody's bound to misspell that. On March 13th of 1975, Jack begins working for Cameron Park Shell. So we still have him, like I said, during the early springtime in the Sacramento, California area, despite claiming that he has been disabled and in bed from March to June 1975. The February 27, 76 report shows that he was supposedly bedridden, but I show that he started working for Cameron Park Shell at this time. So everybody pick which one he's lying about and go with it. Many of the jobs for these underground employees are meeting no one would miss them from, like a gas station, should they have to up and take off. So when I read the Dear Jane letters, it talks about some of the gas stations that were involved in positions for people like in the CIA or Secret Service or whatever their position is, that they're there manning until they need them to do something for them. And those gas stations were Standard Oil, Shell. So we have Cameron Park Shell as one of Jack's jobs, and Exxon as the attributors to this employee pool of hired killers. On April 23rd of 1975, the San Francisco Examiner runs the story that Sonoma County murders were all committed by one person and that they could be linked to the Zodiac. On May 21st, 1975, Jack begins seeing a chiropractor for his back injury, supposedly acquired at Cameron Park Shell. So he goes from working in March to being bedridden at some point in March to June, and in May, in the mid-May, he starts seeing a chiropractor for it. Between May and September of 1975, Jack supposedly seeing that chiropractor frequently for both upper and lower back pain. So that would put him, if he's visiting this chiropractor, in the California area through September of 1975. June of 1975, though, we see the print date of a picture. So Jack has visited Flova in Texas, and all I really have is the print date. So at some point before June of 1975, he did make a trip out of California to Texas. And per the 2/26/76 report that Jack is suffering from an industrial accident that occurred on June of 1975. This coincides with the picture of Flova in Texas printed June of 1975. But this means, like I said, he must have visited at some point previous, maybe even previous to the injury. I have no idea. He's making a claim for work.
Can I say something real quick?
Let me just finish this one line. Harriet, let me finish this one line. Making a claim to work comp for both now Cameron Park Shell and Lake Tahoe City Linen. So his attorney's going after both previous employers. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that's perfect timing that he would be able to sneak out and on a trip and get up to do his execute order of Sam Giancana around, I think it's June 30th. Because he's in that area. He's definitely outside of California, but he's in that area then. And then, of course, he would have the timing to go down to Texas. So that's the perfect timing right there.
Well, and I note that there's no murders during this time either. So while he's got all of this going on with work comp and working and things, we see that we're void of any type of unsolved murders that are taking place as well. In fact, the next thing that we actually find is on March 11th of 1975. I am completely out of order with that. March, that should have gone in there. That should have gone just one step before. Last seen July 11th of 1974 was Deanna Hooper, and she is now being found on March 11th of 1975, and they have some photographs here and some information in regards to her death. I think, and she was the one that was partying in the area of Mare Island Shipyard. And this is why some people's theories is that the Zodiac must have been stationed at Mare Island. Yeah.
That's a really weird picture. It makes her look like she has a really long neck.
Yeah, they didn't quite get the shading correctly that would show you the differentiation between her shoulders. The one to the right looks a little bit better as far as
that goes. Yeah.
Size. Yeah. Anyways, this information comes from zodiacciphers.com. That brings us into what we do see as the first murder is July 24th, 1975. Barbara Colby in Venice, California, shot to death walking to her car with a friend who died after giving a description of the shooter. There was no attempt to rob them, but from what I can tell, and I think this was a Wikipedia search, Colby started her acting career in the theater following a performance in Six Characters in Search of an Author in 1964. She moved to Broadway with a debut in The Devils the following year. Throughout the rest of the decade, she appeared in such plays as Under Milkwood, Murder in the Cathedral, Dear Liar, and A Doll's House, and garnered fine reviews for her Portia in Julius Caesar.
Yeah.
In 1966. Her first important television role was in the first season of Columbo, you guys. I thought that one was interesting.
Columbo. I got Columbo. Anyways.
I know. In an episode titled Murder by the Book in 1971. She played many support guest roles on such established shows as The Odd Couple, Macmillan and Wife, The FBI, Medical Center, Kung Fu, and Gunsmoke. It looked like she was just returned to the classes off Broadway. Let's see, 2 films. Streetwise Prostitute in an episode of the Mary Tyler Moore Show led to an appearance in a subsequent episode. In 1975, Colby appeared as a new regular player on the Mary Tyler Moore Show spinoff Phyllis, starring Cloris Leachman. Colby, who had appeared with Leachman in the TV movie A Brand New Life in 1973, was cast as Leachman's boss, Julie Erskine, the owner of a commercial photography studio. So basically her and her partner, whoever it was that she was walking down the street with, were both killed with it's still unsolved at this point. Venice, California puts us back down inside of that Southern California area, like we were just talking about with Torrance, California, correct, Nolan?
Yes.
Do you know where to? Yeah.
LA County.
So if If Charles did in fact die in 1975, this could be a proximity murder where Jack happens to be in town when his brother is ill. Who knows? I don't put anything past these people.
Why would he not know the year his brother dies? That's just odd. Especially
I know.
10 years in the past.
Exactly. So, well, and like I said, that looks to me to be his older writing. So when he's older, like his late 60s, 70s. So he may have been, yeah, maybe he was trying to bring that back at that point. I do see that he does a eulogy for one of his brothers, but I want to say that I think it was Dawn. We'll know when we get there. Either way, it's pretty far into the future. I want to say 80s or 90s. So it gives us some personal life based on her. And so the two people, Colby and colleague James Kiernan, were walking to their car following an acting class in Palms, Los Angeles, California, when they were shot inside a parking area. The murders occurred sometime after the first 3 episodes of the upcoming TV series Phyllis had been filmed. Colby was instantly killed, but Kiernan was able to describe the shooting to the police before he died of his wounds. But they don't give any information. Kiernan said that he did not recognize the 2 men who shot them. So obviously there's 2 people involved, and that the shooting had occurred without warning or provocation. It was normal for Colby and classmates to congregate in the parking lot after acting class and talk. Kiernan told investigators they were approached by 2 black men in a light colored van and were each shot once. So that it sounds obviously odd, but I've seen several of these crimes where they've attempted to pin the crimes on an African-American or a black male in that particular case. So I'm wondering if this information is truly accurate and what Kiernan actually gave the police as information. The police said there was no attempt to rob the pair and concluded it was randomly drive-by shooting. That's not a randomly drive-by shooting. Those 2 statements conflict each other. I mean, Kiernan says that they were approached by 2 men in a light-colored van. Let's see. Wait a minute. Where was that at? Shot inside. Did not recognize the 2 men who shot them. Kiernan said that it was normal. They were approached by 2 black men. So being approached by 2 black men is... Thank you. So even the 2 statements inside of this particular Wikipedia post is contradicting what happened. So you have to hold very little truth in what we are reading because only law enforcement and whoever Kiernan spoke to knows the absolute truth. It says at the time of her death, Colby was separated from her husband, Bob Levitt, son of Ethel Merman. Could there be a reason? While the first 3 episodes of the first season of Phyllis were her final works, all released in September of 1975, her final appearance to be released was in the TV movie The Ashes of Mrs. Reasoner, aired in January 1976. Colby's immediate survivors include her mother and her half-sister. So that's what we had on her. Then our next one comes into play with Deborah Carrick, August 17th, but before August 26, 1975. So maybe this is another case of somebody being held. It says she was hitchhiking and riding the bus from Maryland to California, visiting national parks on the way. Maryland had been the latest strikes up to 1972-73 by the DC Freeway Phantom. She was last seen August 17th at the Flamingo Motel in Flagstaff, Arizona. We do coincidentally have Jack in Flagstaff, Arizona, but not until, is that 90 in the 90s, Harriet?
I think it's 1993.
Yeah, I want to say that that's about right. And she planned on going to the Grand Canyon the next day. We've seen pictures of Jack and Nora at the Grand Canyon. So these are obvious routes that Jack has traveled. August 26th, some of her belongings and ID was found near the intersection of Highway 101 and Mark West Springs Road near Santa Rosa, California. So I'm thinking that she was attributed to the Santa Rosa hitchhiker murders. Did you have any information on Deborah Carrick?
No, but she's on Graysmith's list as a Zodiac victim, if I remember right. And it's very interesting, just offhand, you said August 26th. That's the date of Arthur Lee Allen's birthday. So I think there's a connection there, but I don't think Jack killed her, but she's connected somehow to the others that became victims. That's usually drugs, and people owed money, and they sold the kids, etc. So, but that's my basics on that. So anything that's Robert Graysmith's list needs to be decoded. So.
Well, then I can always send you this information. September 9th, body is found inside a canyon of the Little Colorado River off Highway 64, which is halfway between Cameron and Grand Canyon National Park, which did not make any sense to me, because between Cameron and Grand Canyon National Park, I'm sorry, it says the body is found, but
the body,
the other information, though, says that
her personal belongings near Santa Rosa. Which is odd. Why would you take them all the way to Santa Rosa?
Because if you were Jack traveling from one location to the next, let's say she was abducted at the Grand Canyon. Well, her belongings were found.
There's so much that I've seen where bodies were being, I've got them lately, bodies being transported or victims being transported across state lines all the way into California. So, that's the one I have to get to.
And we've seen that with Sharp and Gall. They believed that they were actually abducted. Their apartment was in Albany, New York, but their dead bodies were found in Los Angeles, California. Either way, like Nolan had mentioned, we've got a body between Cameron and Grand National Park, and we've got belongings found on Highway 101 near Santa Rosa, California. And we know that ultimately her goal was California. So let me read a little bit about what they say. On August 18th, Deborah left her hotel with intention to visit the Grand Canyon. On the very same day, the murder of a young man took place nearby off of Highway 180 in Kendrick Park. The man was killed for his car, and the suspects were later apprehended and convicted. These same men would later to go on to claim they were also involved in the murder of Carrick, but then would soon recant these statements. I would find that interesting if they attempted to take credit for it, because how would they have then ended up in Santa Rosa and still have been caught for the murder of this man they stole the car from? It is unknown whether or not Deborah actually made it to the Grand Canyon, being able to check it off her list of national parks. She was not spotted again in Arizona or anywhere along her route home to California. On August 26th, a handful of her belongings, as well as her ID, would be discovered in Santa Rosa, California, at the intersection of Highway 101 and Mark West Springs Road, about 30 miles of her final destination of Sebastopol. This is the exact same location that the bodies of 4 other murdered women would be left around this time period. So we've got somebody dumping her belongings around 4 other murders that's involved with the Santa Rosa hitchhiker murders. This is...
That's a big clue.
That's what they are, clues.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just saying, hey, I might be the same person that killed these other people, basically.
Right. And that's what we find with the League City Field of Deaths and the Tim Miller League City and I-45 killings, the Galveston killings, is that a consistent return to the same area where these bodies were. On September 2nd, 4 of Deborah's traveler's checks would be cashed at a bank. However, these checks were cashed by a mail and the signatures were forged. I wish I could get my hands on those. When investigators arranged these checks in numerical order, the checks were being cashed at banks heading from north to south from Colorado. The next day, on September 3rd, 3 more checks would be cashed at a bank in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We definitely have Jack traveling constantly through New Mexico. Lots of stories from Dennis and in Nora's diary that actually puts Jack traveling through those areas. On September 9th, Deborah's body would be discovered in a side canyon of the Little Colorado River on Highway 64. This area is about halfway from Cameron, Arizona, to the Grand Canyon. It appeared that Deborah had been dead for about 3 weeks, with the cause of death being from blunt force trauma to her head. The body was fully clothed, minus her shoes and socks that had lied nearby, and investigators were unable to tell if any sexual assault had taken place. Her body would be identified through dental records. So an apparent murder with no sexual assault involved. In September of 1970, what's that?
I'm seeing CIA stuff, intel community. That's all cryptic information code. Oh my God. Anyways,
well, I'll send over what I have to you. Yeah, I'll send over what I have to you, but it looks like the killer wanted to make sure, like you guys said, that there was some clues left behind, and the Zodiac has definitely stated he's left clues at the scenes of his crime. So we see that the ice blue Chevy Biscayne is being sold by Nora on September 3rd of 1975. This might literally be, and I don't know where it was sold at. I just have a copy of the title that is signed. So whether or not this is them already over in Cotton, Minnesota, or they're selling it in order to facilitate that move. One of the two things are going on here, but we do now see that they're getting rid of assets, and they've already sold Mount Occam and they moved into a place to rent. So maybe Jack had planned and scouted Minnesota much earlier than we anticipated based on his collective moves as they sell off all of their assets. September 11th of 1975, we have Claude Snelling in Visalia, California, discovered a masked intruder in his home trying to kidnap his daughter. Claude was shot and killed. He's a journalism professor at the College of the Sequoias. And of course, this is similar to some of the other home break-ins that we see in Degnan class, the John Benet Ramsey case, and others where they were stolen from their home or killed inside their home, which appeared that the suspect actually knew the layout of the home in order to be able to go directly into that room and obtain the victim he was looking for. This shows basically some ransacking that's going on, which really kind of steps foot into the East Area Rapist, the Golden State Killer, and the Visalia Ransacker, which has all been laid on D'Angelo. I thought it was interesting to note. So when people think that I might be a little crazy putting all of these different crimes together as one person, we can see how they have collectively placed many crimes on D'Angelo. We're coming up on him. Anyways, let me read a little bit about what they are saying. The Visalia Ransacker had been breaking into homes for over a year when he targeted the residence of Claude Snelling, a journalism professor at the College of the Sequoias, on the night of September 11th, 1975. It's not clear whether the killer knew Snelling, although the arrest warrant for D'Angelo offers a few tantalizing details. Well, we would like to see that, you guys. I really would.
Yeah.
By 1974, D'Angelo attended a police academy for 200 hours at the Kings County Public Safety Academy. I wish I knew how long that 200 hours last. I mean, literally, if we just even did math. What's that?
I was going to say that could be a month or it could be a year. I mean, it's just hours.
I know. And if you did let's say you did 8 hours a day, the calculations for that puts it at around about 15 days. That's not very long. So when they say 200 hours, this is what irritates me about the statistics in the news. When you say something like 200 hours, it makes it literally impossible for an individual to completely understand the breadth or the width of the time frame that he's spent there. When 200 hours, if he's doing 8 hours a day, is literally only 15 days. So how long are they really saying that it was there? Right?
That's the, yeah. Show us the receipts. Show us the paperwork. Come on.
Right. The Kings County Public Safety Academy, it notes, was held on campus of the College of Sequoias. The over 100 residential burglaries in Tulare County were clustered on either side of the College of the Sequoias. The warrant calls it the epicenter. Drainage ditches connected many of the neighborhoods, ideal for prowling and for getaways, another trademark of the Golden State Killer. I just find it hard to grasp. Now, don't get me wrong. We've seen plenty of established law enforcement officers become violent suspects, right? Like the history of, but usually you've already gotten into that, or you've been rejected from becoming a police officer. So you go on your little, I'm going to show them, I'm going to do a crime that I can get away with, right? Yeah. The mentality behind I'm going to go do 200 hours at the safety academy to become a police officer. Meanwhile, I'm out robbing over 100 people, raping over 50 people, killing over, I think, 8 or 10 people. Seems like this person had a whole lot more time on their hands than actively trying to become a police officer. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, he did become an officer. He was an officer in Auburn and I think other places.
That's what I'm saying. So he's, where do you find the time when you're going through schooling? I don't know. I've been to college, and I can tell you that it is no easy walk in the park. And if you're doing anything full time with college, you're likely not doing anything else but sitting on a couch.
Right. Well, it's being an officer or a cadet is good cover because people aren't going to suspect you.
Well, yeah, but you would have to think about that ahead of time. Now, the other side of that is they said that there was reconnaissance going on. So not only did this person commit these robberies, but he was staking out and investigating these particular houses or places that he was going to rob. Do you know how much time it takes to do that?
Well, that's just perhaps it's circumstantial evidence that maybe he had accomplices.
Well, and to date, at least with the East Area rapist, they'd only indicated that the men had been tied up to watch their significant other be raped, but that man would have been able to state there was a second person involved, right?
Those were the rape,
there were statements. There were statements. I'm just saying that there were statements early on before he got completely arrested that there were other people in the room. But anyways, they just dropped that.
That's some crap right there. Basically, on the press release, they discussed the micro penis that the East Area rapist had, and I thought, easy peasy, just take a picture of his junk.
Yeah.
Did I tickle your funny bone there, Nolan? Okay, so if it was as easy as taking a picture of his junk, they then did a press release stating that they had gotten the warrant to take that picture of D'Angelo's junk. And immediately following that, I began hearing the press release you're talking about, Harriet, saying that, oh, he must have had a partner. Why? Because he didn't have the micro penis that all of the 50-some rape victims declared that he had. And now you guys are looking for a completely different person to be involved so you can continue to hem him up. If he doesn't have that micro penis, then why is he the one listed for these particular killings? And like I said, of those 50-some rapes, not one person, even men who were tied up and made to watch, ever reported there was a second suspect involved. So I think there's something crazy going on there. I just don't know what it is. And
but
not to mention,
while we're at it,
my point was that maybe he had like people doing recon, and then he would go in and do the act.
He didn't do all that stuff by himself. I think that's the drawn out point.
The whole thing here, though, is this micro penis. Even if he went in and did the act, if he went in and did the act, they reported a micro penis. Then where's our proof that that's exactly what D'Angelo had? I just think too much of the important evidence was withheld, and I'm gonna share some things with you that might even knock your socks off in regards to these cases. But I did find a March 11th, 1974 Visalia Times Delta that actually had a picture of what they call the original Night Stalker. And now this got my head up because I thought Richard Ramirez was the original Night Stalker. Am I wrong, or was he the second one?
No, he was known as the Night Stalker, Ramirez, yes.
Right, and they're saying that they are literally trying to, man was known as East Area Rapist, Golden State Killer, and most notoriously, the original Night Stalker. He started his criminal career in Visalia. So here, they're saying that he's the original. So back as early as 1974, and I believe the article discussed DNA testing that actually helped connect these cases. So how then does it, where did Richard Ramirez operate out of? Was he
LA area, I thought.
Well, that's Visalia. That's what we're dealing with.
And then he did do a brief stint up in the San Francisco, San Mateo area. I had to know because he was robbing people in our neighborhood, but that was brief. So
who did?
See, these are cases that I've definitely followed because
Ramirez.
I get even more confused. So here we have this composite, which is definitely kind of a likeness to Joseph D'Angelo. I knew I had that wrong. Joseph D'Angelo was an Exeter police officer in the 1970s. So he's already a police officer in the Exeter area, which means he had to do all the work to become that police officer. You don't go stalking all night long and have to show up and take tests and classes the next day. I just don't.
Exeter's near Visalia, and they're both near Porterville. It's the same region.
Right. Well, it gets even more interesting when I started to look up what I had for information on the original Night Stalker versus what's actually being portrayed in Wikipedia today. So over here to the left, we see the different sketches of various suspects seen in the area of the East Area Rapist. That I found interesting. We also have the 3 sketches focused when they reopened the case in June of 2016. It looks to me like they just picked out the ones they thought they could attribute to D'Angelo. Yeah.
Yeah, those
but
look a lot more like D'Angelo, the 3 on the top right.
Right. Now, focus on this one over here to the left. Not only does it have more of a likeness of Richard Ramirez, but this was the actual face and composite that made Wikipedia in 2016. So I've kept all of my research from the years that I've been pulling this information, and this likeness and this composite to have made Wikipedia either means that we are being misinformed, or they really thought that the suspect, and to my knowledge, there was a police officer that actually chased the suspect in the Visalia ransacking cases out of one of the burglaries that he was committed, and he hopped on a bicycle and purportedly took the bicycle to whatever vehicle he had and got away. So you'd think that it would be a more reliable sketch from the police department, but this looks nothing like D'Angelo, you guys. And this was what was on the... This was what was on the...
left is like Ramirez.
None of them really kind of look like it. So I was just kind of blown away. And then when I got into the original Night Stalker, once again, here we see this face, but then we also see now this is the face that Wikipedia is putting on in its sketches of 2 suspects in the Maggie Ori murders. So it's almost as if they want to flip-flop back and forth. It was 1, it was 2, it was 1, it was 2. I don't know where they got the information that was 2, because the Maggie Ori murders say a young couple, 21-year-old Brian Keith Maggiore, a military policeman at Mather Air Force Base, and his 20-year-old wife, Katie Lee Maggiore, were walking their dog in the Rancho Cordova area on the night of February 2nd, 1978, near where 5 East Area rapist attacks had occurred. The Maggiores fled after a confrontation in the street, but were chased down and shot to death. Some investigators suspected that they had been murdered by the East Area rapists because of their proximity to the other attacks and locations, and a shoelace was found nearby. The FBI announced on June 15, 2016, that it was confident that the East Area rapist had murdered the Maggiores. And on June 29th of 2020, D'Angelo entered a plea of guilty to these murders. So we don't get the evidence. We just get to see what they had to say. But like I said, if you look over here, this is the 2016 Wikipedia page, and it has a completely different police sketch. And it says police sketch of the suspect. I just don't know who that gave that information. But we see things constantly changing. And I wanted to note that in this particular original Night Stalker case, when they entered this information, let's see, the crimes initially centered on East Sacramento, where at least 50 women were sexually assaulted between June 18th, 1976 and July 5th, 1979. The perpetrator was dubbed the East Area Rapist. In 2001, the Northern California rapes were linked by DNA to murders in Southern California. The original Night Stalker East Area Rapist was never apprehended. Several suspects have been cleared through DNA, alibi, and other investigative means. But in this article, they also stated that when they did these DNA tests, this is when they began to develop the DNA database that they actually used to hem up D'Angelo. And then we saw in the press release of D'Angelo them asking for the public to fund or to give money towards their DNA future goals of evolving the ability to test DNA to determine whether or not somebody's involved. So I see this heavy hitting thing going on with the DNA industry over these particular crimes. Again, makes me question things. Let's see what time we have. We're at 10:48, so before I continue to go on with any of that, I just thought that was some very interesting information, and now we can see how the internet is actually evolving to remove information, replace information, and insert what they want people to believe and perceive today. Is there anything you guys would like to add?
Nope.
I just find this, for me, I find this very interesting, as I followed the East Area Rapist cases, all those cases for years, because anything that people thought was linked to the Zodiac, that was also one of them. So I just wanted to say something really quick. For about 15 years, people were talking about a guy with a bull tattoo on their arm. And, as East Area rapist suspect. And then all of a sudden, D'Angelo didn't have it. That all went off the internet. So I just
see,
bring that up. Okay.
This is what I'm saying, you guys, and we're going to heavily get into their desire to convict and close cases on people and their ability to get people to accept a plea deal to crimes they did not commit. And this is falsifying documents. We're going to talk about the 1996 murder case and all the things that the DA did to secure this conviction against this guy, all of the perjury that was committed, the evidence that was withheld. So again, we're just back at this point is, do we really have the right guy? And I only say this because, like I said, one of my really good girlfriends has been friends with D'Angelo for more than 12 years, working with him at Save Mart, and did not ever suspect that he had this type of mentality inside of him. Well, that's it, you guys. That's it. That's all we got today. I thank everybody for being here. Have a wonderful week, and we will see you next Friday. Bye. Oh,